plan to help homeowners underwater on mortgages.
I am sending Congress a plan that will give every responsible homeowner in America the chance to save about $3,000 a year on their mortgage by refinancing at historically low rates.
Now, the president plans to pay for this by imposing a $5 to $10 billion fee on banks. To Oklahoma Republican Senator Tom Coburn on if that plan would ever fly in Congress. What do you think, Senator?
Well, just remember, if you impose a new tax on the banks, the people that are going to pay for that is everybody that uses a bank in one way or another. So what the president's proposing is to pay for the refinancing of homes for people who use banks. So it's a tax, and it's not a tax on banks, it's a tax on individual Americans. Probably the better part of valor is, why do you have to have a tax to do this in the first place? We can borrow 30-year money at 3.1%. You can loan it to people with taking their property over a 30-year period at 5%, which is markedly lower than many of them have now. Refinance and save the same amount of money without creating a tax in the first place. And I think Ron Paul has a couple of things right. I think you allow people to dip into their 401ks in a tax-free manner to get out of trouble on their homes. And I think he's also right that you allow capital loss on that.
But if you allow the capital loss and essentially use it as a deduction, it's going to cost the Treasury a lot of money, right?
No, it's not, because the capital losses are limited to $1,000 a year unless you have capital gains to offset it. So what you will do is decrease the taxes a small amount each year over a period of a number of years.
Now, it would also have to include quite a few folks, because it depends what your definition is, whether you're just underwater or what defines underwater, how long you've been underwater, right? The devil's in the details.
Well, the key word is responsible, and he doesn't define what that is. And I think that's the question the media ought to be asking the president. Who qualifies for this? Who, under your definition of responsible homeowner, who is that, and what are the parameters of it? Remember, we've already spent a ton of money ineffectively on 1 million HAMP programs. It was supposed to help 4 million homeowners. It's helped less than 1 million. We've spent a considerable amount of money on that. His administration's been effective and ineffective in administering that. So the point is what we're doing is doubling down on an ineffective administration of a program that he has now, using other people's money to pay for the cost of the financing, which is anybody that uses a bank. So there's a way to do this without raising anybody's taxes and using the faith and credit of the U.S. government as a basis for borrowing money on a 30-year basis to, in fact, change these loans to lower interest rate loans.
Speaking of the president, Senator, he referred to you in his State of the Union address last week. For any of them who missed that, I wanted to get your reaction to this because I hadn't had the pleasure.
Tax reform should follow the Buffett rule. If you make more than $1 million a year, you should not pay less than 30% in taxes. And my Republican friend Tom Coburn is right. Washington should stop subsidizing millionaires.
Was he right on that?
Well, I don't believe in the Buffett rule. I think you modify the tax code, you lower the rates, and you spread out the cost of it, and you'll actually get good economic. I actually believe we ought to quit. Before we're going to tax millionaires, people who actually are accomplishing things in this country, actually creating the capital, before we raise the tax on them, the first thing we ought to do is eliminate $30 billion a year in subsidies for them. So I propose that part of an overall tax reform package is to take those away.
Which would effectively raise their taxes, right?
Well, but Neil, can you really justify me, somebody who has a second home as a yacht, where they can depreciate the yacht, take a mortgage interest deduction on the yacht, deduct the mooring fees for the yacht, and call that a second home when in fact they have another second home and another second home? You know, the point is our country's in trouble. There's no question we need to all are going to have to sacrifice. But before, the tax code's a mess. Why in the world would we allow that in the first place unless we got a special deal in to try to help the yacht manufacturer?
So when you hear others in your party, maybe more conservative members of the Tea Party, who say they're open to addressing getting rid of these subsidies, credits, special breaks and allowances for everybody, they don't want it to be sort of a unilateral withdrawal here. They want to see this done in context of a simpler tax code.
Overall,
what do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree. Overall tax simplification. You know, we're spending $300 billion a year paying our taxes. That's $300 billion that's not going into productive work in this country that actually creates something. There's no wealth creation in that. Right. So having a very much flatter tax code, a very much fairer tax code, which is the opposite of what the president wants to do. You know, the top 1% pay 38% of federal taxes, the top 10% pay 70%, the top 20% pay 85%. He wants to make that even worse. The fact is you're not going to transfer wealth to those that don't have it through the federal government auspices.
Thank you, Senator. Good seeing you again.
You're welcome. Good talking to you.
All right, Fair and Balanced, Gene Sperling. He's the director of the White House National Economic Council. Gene, first off, you think that this plan the president proposes is the way to go. I guess